Hey guys, I'm RNG Gamer. I play all of my games randomly. Welcome to Beating the Backlog, the show where I go over the 7 games we have today that were picked randomly for me to play, and I give you a quick review of them. You'll have to excuse my voice. I have a rockin' cold. I'm super sick. I'm hyped up on Sudafed at the moment just to get the energy to do this, but hopefully we can get through it. Also, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe if you like the content, hit the little bell notification, leave a comment below. I love talking to you guys. So let's dive right into these. First up, we have a game that I'm pretty sure most of you have never heard of before. It's an import game. It's a shoot 'em up, a shmup, and it's called Rattergy Swag, and it's on the Illumatic Envelope Rattergy Swag collection on the Nintendo Switch. So the Rattergy series is a very strange series. Rattergy is a combination of the words radio and allergy. Radio allergy, Rattergy. And the first game came out on the Dreamcast in Japan, and it was one of the last games to come out for the system. They ported it to the Wii, and now we have like a sequel to it here in this Rattergy Swag. And this game is bizarre. I'll just try to like describe kind of how it's played, but first let me give you a little bit of background of the plot of it. And it's hard to follow, but it's something to the degree that radio waves in the future are like giving everybody these terrible allergies and making them crazy, and they don't want to go outside. So they hire these delivery people to bring them stuff, and that's who you are in this game. You're a delivery person. In this version of the game, I think you're trying to escape to the moon. It's hard to say, but in general, I mean, from what you see, you can see it's like chaos. Good luck figuring out how to play this game without a guide. I'll kind of describe what you see on the screen. Over on the left are like these level up, I don't know, bars. You can ignore that. That's garbage for unlocking like extras like achievements and stuff. Up at the top right, you have your life. That's your health. And then below it, you have 2 gauges. The innermost one is your charge gauge, which is essential to the gameplay, and the one to the right is like your progress to the moon. This game doesn't have stages. It's just from your home apartment till you get to the moon, and that's it. So what you do is you basically have 2 shot types. Usually you just kind of stick with one, but in addition to that, you have a sword, like a melee weapon, and that's important. What you do is you kill enemies, and they drop icons that have different power-ups. You kind of juggle them like you do in the Twin B series. So if you hit them with your melee attack, they bounce up to the top of the screen, and they rotate. And what you're trying to do is basically get up like icons to speed yourself up to get to the moon quicker and to get like higher scores. There's health, there's multipliers, things that charge up that gauge, that innermost gauge. And the way it works is basically the goal is to fill that gauge. And what it does is it like gives you like almost like a bomb or a charge attack that makes you invincible and also damages enemies. And the goal is to keep that charged as quickly as or as often as you can, to basically spam it. And the whole game is just like, it's almost like a rhythm game. You're trying to keep that gauge filled up. And the best way to do that is to like speed up and hit as many enemies as you can to keep getting those icons to fill it up and get score multipliers, and basically just stay invincible the whole time. And that's cool. It's like a chaining game, which is fun. As you can see, the graphics, they're very cool, but they're very busy. It's kind of hard to focus on what's going on in this game. It's the same with all the Rattergy games, or all the games made by this company that made this. They're called Milestone. They've done several games similar to this. And the music is always like this kind of trance music, and the whole gameplay is centered around getting into this like flow state of just you know, like feeling the rhythm of it. All the enemies are like randomly placed, so you just get into this flow state where you're just chaining and you're grooving out to this trance music, and it's okay. It's pretty catchy. The music's all right. But the things that I hate about this game, one is there's just a lot to keep track of. You got to like watch your health gauge. You got to watch all the power-ups. You have to watch the enemy bullets. You have to deal with this juggling mechanic where you try to like rotate the icons to speed icons or health icons or whatever you need. It really does remind me of Twinbee, and I freaking hate that series a lot. And this game kind of involves like holding down, you know, multiple buttons. Like you hold down your shot button and your melee attack button, and you have to kind of like let off the melee attack button. It's kind of like throttling the gas in a car, if you've ever done that, like in like being in rush hour traffic. It's tiring, and it makes my hands hurt actually just kind of playing this game. Like I mentioned, the enemy placement is randomized, and it really does make the game feel more like a rhythm game than a shmup most of the time. You don't really like dodge much or route your way through the levels. Instead, you just kind of like react and time these bomb presses. It's okay. If you get into it, it's fine. I was able to get really far into this, but I honestly tell you guys, I never made it to the moon. I never got to the end of it, like played all the way through the game. And you can't beat this game unless you one credit clear it. You have one life. You play from the beginning to the end. If you're really good, like world record kind of good, you can do it in about 10 minutes. I think most people would probably take them 20 minutes to play through the whole game, but you know, you're going to put in a lot of time really getting good at that. And combined with that, the fact that it's just one kind of long, drawn-out level, is that there are no practice modes or difficulty levels. Like, this is the game, you play it, and you get good or you get gone, right? And, you know, the game's fine. It's fun. Like I said, I never got to the end of it. I got really close. According to the game, which has, like, online leaderboards, I have, like, the 461st highest score on this game in the whole world, which was really surprising to me, which means that like of all the copies of this game ever sold, like less than 400 people ever reached the end. So like, it's not for the faint of heart. I know a lot of people are not playing this. This is about as niche as they come, guys. I understand that. But overall, the game, like I said, it's okay. It just feels like almost like a supplemental score attack kind of extra mode you'd see in a normal shoot 'em up. And that's kind of where my complaint comes in with this game. And it's like that for a lot of these milestone games. They can be a little hit or miss. So Rattergy swag on the Illumatic envelope Rattergy swag collection that you have to import from Europe if you can, or not Europe, from Asia if you can even find it. Should you play it? I don't know. If there's like a demo of this game, which there's probably not, I would try that. I don't know who this game appeals to. I'm a huge shoot 'em up fan, and I'm a huge rhythm game fan, and I feel like this straddles both of those, but doesn't do either one particularly well. So, I don't know. I buy like every shmup. So I got this, and I've never really been a big fan of the other games this company made, and this is no exception. Illumatic Envelope, the other game on this, I don't know about that one either. We'll see when it gets picked for me randomly to play. But Rattergy swag, some controversy about with this when it was supposed to come out in the West, and the company that was putting it out and published it, like put it up for pre-order and then like stole everybody's money, like never put the game out. And so I don't know what's going on with that. So I just got the Japanese version. I'd say this game is like a 6 out of 10. It's okay. It's not great. I don't know who it's for, but if it looks whimsical and interesting to you, maybe try out the game. I don't know if there's a demo or not, like I said, but sorry, I'm rambling, man. This Sudafed's messing with my head. I apologize. Let's do the next game. It's another Switch game. This is released by I Am 8-Bit. This was a roguelite that like kind of surprised everybody, and for a while it seemed like every streamer was playing it. It's done by the same company that did Faster Than Light, or FTL, if you're a fan of that game. This one's a departure from that. It's Into the Breach. So there's somewhat of a story to this game, I guess. It kind of reminds me of that movie Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise that was surprisingly good, but nobody saw it. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, where every time he dies, he like wakes up, you know, a day or two or whatever it is earlier, and he learns a little bit more, and he's trying to defeat this alien force. It's kind of the same thing here. You're this like pilot, and you're on a team of 3, and your goal is to stop these alien invaders on this planet. They like live inside the planet. They burrow up, and you go through, you know, a set number of stages. And if you fail and you die, your pilot like warps to another timeline and tries again, which is pretty cool. I like that. So the way it works is it's a turn-based grid, you know, tactical combat game. And it's on like these really kind of small, compact maps. And like I said, you only have 3 characters on your team, and each round is only 5 turns. So it makes the game play almost more like a puzzle game. There's very little margin of error in this game. So what you can see the enemy intents and what they're going to do on their turn. So it's all about like disrupting them and positioning them and getting them in the correct position so they don't damage your city or cause you to fail your objectives. And like just failing like a couple times will like give you a game over. So you got to like really be on top of your stuff and think everything out. Pretty cool. It's fun gameplay. It can get challenging to say the least. And the game focuses around like completing these objectives, and that unlocks achievements, which then gives you coins that you spend to unlock new squads of mechs. And there are like many of them of different types, and they all play really differently. You know, the game looks really charming. It kind of looks like Faster Than Light, but I love like the small sprite work and like how compact everything is. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is, you know, one of my favorite games ever. And I really like the blocky art design of it. And the music is catchy, but it's not overbearing, which is exactly what you want in a roguelite, where you're going to be playing like the same missions over and over and over again, trying to improve and unlock new things. A lot of the squads are really fun, and they have like a good balance of being able to damage your opponent and also like manipulate them and move them and stuff, which you need. But some of the squads are like so hard to use, like they don't deal any damage. So it's all about just like you pick up an enemy and you throw them over there, and then the other person like causes that enemy to change the direction he punches, so that enemy hits his another enemy. And you know, it can get to be like a lot, and it's like playing chess where you're trying to, you know, where like everybody moves all their pieces on one turn, and you're trying to like make it so your opponent attacks themselves, essentially. And like I found some of these squads to be really honestly like miserable to play, you know, like I said, when they have like no offensive capabilities. And it like I said, to use the chess analogy again, it's like playing chess with some of these squads. So with some of these, none of them like this, but some of them, it's like playing chess, but you're not allowed to capture your opponent's pieces. They can capture yours. They have 8 pieces, you have 3, and you just have to like manage them through positioning. And that's okay, you know. If you do really, I can't say it's okay. It can be frustrating, and I get some people get really into it, but personally I really enjoyed like beating down the enemy and just sort of like staying on top of them to never let them recover. That's to me where the game was the most fun. If you do really well in the levels, you gain these upgrades, and you know, you unlock new pilots, you get new weapons and stuff, but I found that it was almost better to just like upgrade your mech's standard abilities that they come with, rather than like experiment with new weapons. A lot of the weapons like are just taken from some of the other squads. So like you're playing squad A, you do really well on a level, it might like unlock a weapon that you can use from squad B, but like it requires upgrades too, and they come few and far between, and you really need to like focus on the synergies your team have with each other than like jumping into these other weapons. I'm not saying you can't get one that'll like break the game, but typically it's better just to stick with what your team does well and upgrade that, rather than like branching off into something else. The game in general, like Faster Than Light, is like excruciatingly well designed and thought out, like meticulously to the point where every like banal minutia that comes up, like you have to be really focused on it, you know, and paying attention to what's happening at all times, and you can't slip up. And it can cause it to feel a little repetitive and grindy at times, but it's still really, really great. Each run you can play through up to 4 levels or stages of about 5 or 6 individual maps each. Depending on how many of those different worlds but continents you finish, depends on like what you unlock and how hard it gets. So if you decide you only want to finish the first 2 maps of a run and go ahead and finish the last stage, that's fine. That's kind of like your easy mode. If you want to do 3 maps, it gets a little harder. If you want to do 4, it gets harder. And the maximum you can do is 4 before going to the final stage. So the goal is to kind of like do all permutations of all the wins you could do with every squad. That's kind of where the replay comes into this game. Like I said, it can get a little repetitive and grindy, but it's still really a great game. I have to say though, I did get a little tired of it before I unlocked everything. Still, I did put about 30 hours into it, and I unlocked like all of the squads except for like the one ultimate squad or whatever. And I did beat it with every squad except for I think 1 or 2 that just were so miserable to play. I couldn't make myself do it. So I put about 30 hours into it, and I was glad when it was done. So how is Into the Breach? I think it's a really, really good game. It's not one of the greatest roguelites of all time, but if you like puzzle games and you like tactical games, man, this game was made just for you. If you like faster than light, then this is right up your alley. I give it like an 8 out of 10. I thought it was really, really great. I wish it had more unlockables than just squads and like pilots. I wish you could upgrade more things over time. And I wish there's just a little bit more content rather than having to play the same like 4 maps over and over again. Once you kind of like solve how to do them, it can become rote. Anyway, 8 out of 10 game, pretty good. You should try it. This next game is on the PS4. I have played like all the games in this series. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. It's mindless fun. I call this game Killing Ants. I played it with my daughter, and it's Earth Defense Force 5. Like I said, I think I've played all the other games in this series. I did play it with my daughter. You're watching us play it split screen. You can play it local co-op. I believe she's on the right and I'm on the left here. I hope so. She's 8, guys. She's about to turn 9. So this is like her first shooting game she ever played. And I'll commend her. She did a good job, but you know, her only other first-person game she's ever played is like Minecraft. So she was a real trooper, and this game was long. It's like 110 stages, and she stuck through the whole thing with me. Even we were failing stages all the time. I had to say I lost my patience with her a little bit because like there were literal times where I was getting just swarmed by enemies, and she was like looking at flowers and stuff on the ground or like driving around in a car, just exploring, you know, that Minecraft syndrome. But these games are all the same. They're like it's kind of like a B-rated or B-grade horror movie from the 50s. Aliens invaded and you have to save the Earth. And there's a lot of humor in these games. And part of the kitschiness of it is that like the people over the intercoms and the higher-ups in the military have no like concept of what an alien is or like what a bug is. And the aliens in this game are like bugs and frogs and things like that. And they're like, we've never seen anything like this. And it's like a bee flying around. But yeah, you basically just like run around shooting aliens, and they put a ton of bugs on the screen at once. I mean, we're talking like hundreds of ants and things. And as you shoot them, they drop like these red containers, which give you 1 point of health on your next mission. You slowly upgrade your health over time and unlock new weapons that range from like, you know, shotguns to thermonuclear weapon like grenade launchers. It's pretty cool. You know, the game looks bad. I mean, it's supposed to look low budget, and it is. And you know, the ants are cool and all, but it's very budget friendly, and you can tell that. But, you know, it and its super cheesy music, which can get kind of good at times, it all adds to just the overall charm of the game. And it really is like mindless fun. There's some like cool set pieces where you basically fight like Godzilla or these giant spaceships or these giant walking robots. And it's a nice spectacle. And, you know, those are the memorable points of the game, other than just like mowing through waves of these ants that are like cascading towards you, or exploring down in like the ant hills below the ground, and they're like little colonies and stuff. One of my gripes about this game, one, like I said, it's 110 co-op chapters, which is a lot. Some of these levels take like 30 or 40 minutes to beat. Some of them you can beat in like 2 minutes. It's just the way the game goes. And a lot of times you have to like grind to unlock better weapons and more health, and the game really wants you to beat like all 110 levels on like easy, normal, hard, ultra hard, and like extreme to unlock everything. It's insane. The other problem is that you can't really like unlock any achievements in co-op other than the ones for like reviving your partner. So even though my daughter and I put like, I don't know, 50 hours or something into this game, we like basically unlocks no achievements, which is really upsetting. She really liked that, and I was sad to see she wasn't getting any. The other thing is that like sprinting in this game is really awkward. You have to hold like, I guess it's R3 or L3 on the push in like the left analog stick, and the character like winds up to run and then really can't steer well, and it's hard to hold that in. I feel like you have to press in as hard as you can, and it's like painful on my hands. So we just spend most of our time just kind of like meandering around rather than dashing. And like I said, there's some grindiness of it. There are many times where we would get like the end of some 30 or 40 minute long level, and the flipping level, like you would need to shoot down some spaceship and your gun wouldn't have the range to reach it. And you're like, oh, so I was supposed to pick some different weapon from what I normally use that has more range. But there's like no way to know that till you get to this point. And there's one section where my daughter and we had to play through the same level like 5 or 6 times because we kept picking weapons that we thought would be like long enough range to hit this basically enemy spawning point. And we didn't have any that were long enough to reach it. So we finally just had to like unlock a rangeless like rocket launcher that could shoot any range. And so playing it over and over and over again, she was getting frustrated, I was getting frustrated, but there's like no way to know because that thing doesn't show up till the last section of the level. You know, you're blowing through all these aliens, and then you know, something falls down from the sky that you have to destroy, and there's no way to know it's going to come beforehand. Still, this game series is a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. None of the games are quote unquote good, but they are fun. They are mindless fun, and I do enjoy them. There are several classes, although we basically stuck with the same class the whole time because there's some that can like fly, and there's some heavy armored classes and stuff you can play. But my daughter, I gave her the easiest one to use, like the basic soldier. And then she wanted me to like play the same kind with her. So that's what we ended up with. So Earth Defense Force 5, beat it with my 8-year-old daughter. How was it? I asked her after we were done what she thought it was on a scale of 1 to 10. And she said it was a 7, that it was good, but not great. I agree with her. I say it's also a 7. It's mindless fun, but it's a little too long. There's too many levels. They could have cut those down a little bit, and the repetitive grindiness nature of it is like just a bit too much. So I do recommend this, but I only recommend it if you just want like mindless fun with your friends or something like that. It's that sort of game. So give this one a shot if you're looking for something like that. I say this in like every freaking video. I feel like I talk about these games in every single video, but like I said, I bought these games on the Switch twice, and they're so buggy and laggy and unplayable that like instead of knocking them off the backlog and I was done, I just kind of pushed them to the side till the PS4 version came out, which is better, by the way. It's more playable. I have like just one more of those after this. So we'll be done with these for a while, and the remaining games in the compilation are like in the backlog somewhere else that I've never played. So they'll be completely new to me. But But this one is a classic. It's another Psycho game on the Psycho Shooting Library Volume 1, and it's Strikers 1945. Focus. Do it, do it, do it. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Like I said, this is my third time playing this flipping thing, and I've played this game before. This is kind of like Psycho's take on Capcom's like 1940X, you know, 1941, 1942, 1944, or whatever. It's their take on that series. And this one on the Switch is one of the more playable ones, and I did get the 1 credit clear on it on the Switch. So I know the game's good and a lot of fun. Spoilers. But I just wanted to play it again here on the PS4 and just kind of compare it. It is better here, by the way. This is like a alternate World War II kind of shooter with mechs that like turn into robots that are from outer space. I don't know. It's very strange. You know, it's weird to think that like Hitler's secret weapon the whole time was like robots. Which is what this game's going for. It plays the same as the other Psycho games. I've gone over them before. I won't spend a lot of time on it here. If you want to know, you can watch like any of my other beating the backlog videos or games I played recently videos. But the first like 4 stages in every Psycho game are like randomized, and the last several stages are like set. So if there's 7 stages, which I think there are in this game, the first 4 are randomized. They'll be played in any order, and then the last 3 are always the same. Once again, you have your standard shot, you have your charge shot, and in this one, the charge shots are like much faster and much more useful, and the success of every ship or plane that you pick is really like dependent on how you handle your charge attacks. The ship choices in this are really good. There's lots of like, I mean, not historically accurate. They look and they're named after historically accurate planes that are actually used in the time period, although they shoot like giant shurikens and like lightning bolts and stuff. So I usually use like the P-38, which I think was like a standard, I guess it was an English airplane. I don't know, whatever the case. This game also adds some new mechanics which are different, and I guess they're in some of the other Psycho games, but I'm not sure. But certain bosses and mini bosses will appear based on like where you are on the screen when you show up to them. So like in the next to the last stage or the last stage, there's this one section where like one of 4 different bosses can show up based on like where you are. So if you're like over to the far left, lined up with like the edge of your high score, like the ghost boss will show up. And if you're like 2 inches to the right of that, then like the crab boss will show up. And so on and so forth. And so you have to kind of like manage that and sort of know it. And if you end up the wrong spot, you can like draw or end up with the hardest boss that like will ruin your run, which is strange. It's a neat mechanic, but a little bit too much to keep track of, in my opinion. The game looks awesome. I love the way the Psycho games look. You know, it has really cool pixel graphics, and you know, the music in this game is some of the best that Psycho has ever done. There are a couple of tunes that are like bangers and a half, like really good. So that's a nice improvement over what they usually put out, which is usually pretty forgettable and bad. But most of the tracks in this game are like that. They're just forgettable. You know, nothing to say too great about them. Sorry, guys. A lot of the more annoying issues from the other Psycho games that came before this, and I think there were only a couple, they're just fixed here. You know, it's the charge shot's faster, the enemy bullet placement makes more sense. You know, you can, the difficulty levels, there's 7 like usual that go from monkey all the way up to like extreme. Monkey's very easy. You can like beat it, you know, 1 credit cleared on your first try usually, all the way up through easy with just a little bit of practice, and it gets really hard. Unlike Sengoku Ace, which I reviewed in my last video, where like it took me 2 weeks to be able to beat it on monkey, and then I was able, or not beat it, but like 1 credit clear it. In case you guys don't know, 1 credit clear it. These are arcade games, by the way, guys. That would be like you put 1 quarter into the arcade machine and beat the game. You never have to put in another quarter. So on the Psycho games, on the other one that I reviewed, like monkey took me 2 weeks to be able to do that, and then I was able to do it on like the hardest difficulty setting on the same day. So there was no balance. That's not the case with this game. Strikers 1945 is well balanced, and there's like a good ramp up in difficulty to kind of train yourself. But once again, in these collections, there's no training modes, there's no save states. Like if you're struggling on the last boss, you gotta play through the whole freaking game to get some practice in, which is really annoying, and they need to fix that. No modern arcade ports should ever do that. Never. They should never do that. It should always come with training modes and things like that, because we don't have time to spend like, you don't want to play through a game, 250, 300 times to be able to one credit clear it, when the only thing inhibiting you from doing it is like one random part at the end of the game. Really annoying. So Strikers 1945 on the Psycho collection, how is it? It's one of the best Psycho games. I really like this game a lot. I've played through it a lot. I've one credit cleared it on several different versions. I think it's great. It's like an 8 out of 10. It's really fun. I like it. You should definitely play that one if you're a shooter fan. Oh man, this one I was really looking forward to. I mentioned it in a pickups video. I'm so glad it got picked randomly. This game, I did not play it when it came out because I was waiting on Capcom to put out the gold version, because on all their other releases, and I'm remembering back to like Resident Evil 7 specifically, they released all this DLC and expansions and extra modes and all this that you had to buy, but then they released a gold version where all that is like on disc and included. So I waited around for Capcom to release this as a gold version because I wanted it all on disc, and the idiots just put the standard game in the disc in here and then a bunch of download codes. So Resident Evil Village Gold Edition on the PS5 is just like if you went and bought the original release version of Resident Evil Village and then just purchased the DLC. This is no different. It has a different cover and that's all you get. I'm really annoyed, but I'm less annoyed as I thought I would be, and I'll get to that in a minute. All right, guys, I really love Resident Evil. I did not play it from the first Resident Evil on the PlayStation 1 till like I was an adult with kids, but I've gotten back into it and I'm going through and I'm playing through all the games again. I'm really enjoying it, and I was looking forward to this one. This is like the direct sequel to Resident Evil 7. You play as, I guess his name's Ethan Winters or whatever again. He was kind of like a silent protagonist, but they've tried to give him more of a personality in this one, I guess. And your daughter, Rose, has been like kidnapped and taken to this like spooky European village where everybody has like a Californian accent. And you have to like investigate the spooky village and like its surrounding areas to find her. Unlike most of the other Resident Evil games, this one has followed suit with Resident Evil 7, and it's in like a first-person view, which is fine. I like that. I prefer like the third-person or over-the-shoulder look, but this is good too. It changes things up, and it is very atmospheric. And it has like most of the stuff that make Resident Evil great. It's got the tense gameplay. It has exploring these incredible environments, which is my favorite part of any Resident Evil game. And to go along with that, solving the puzzles. And they brought back like the shopkeeper. It's not the same shopkeeper from Resident Evil 4, but a good analog of him. And you can upgrade your weapons and unlock new weapons and stuff. This game does have inventory management, which I have grown to really like in Resident Evil games. But I feel like in this one, they kind of give you maybe too much inventory space too soon, because the inventory management was not really an issue till the latter half of the game, where I had like a machine gun and a grenade launcher and a shotgun and like a sniper rifle and this and that and this, where I was carrying like 7 weapons with me. I felt like they gave you a little bit too much space. The overall premise of this is you're like fighting through the village, and there are 4, I don't remember what they call them, but like 4 areas surrounding the village, and you have to go to each one, venture into each one, and defeat like a boss there to get the parts to unlock like the final area of the game. And the village kind of serves as a hub. It's really fun exploring around, and these areas are all very different, and they play very differently, which is cool. I think the game just looks gorgeous, and the environments are incredible. And I play all my stuff randomly. You guys know that. It's my whole thing. So I haven't played a ton of like current gen. When I say current gen, I mean like PS5 and modern PC games, because everything's picked randomly. But this is like the best looking game I've ever seen in my life up to this point. I mean, I haven't played a ton of PlayStation 5 stuff, but man, this looks incredible to me. I saw people like dogging on the graphics. I don't know what they're talking about. I think it looks amazing. The world design's great. The set design's great. I feel like Capcom really poured their heart into designing, the environments in this, and they look great. And the music, I mean, it's like Resident Evil music, so it's more atmospheric, although it does get pretty tense at times. It's not really memorable, but the sound design in this game is incredible. And I have surround sound down here, and man, you can something sneaks up behind you. You really feel it. So, some things I really enjoy about this. It's been a while since I played Resident Evil 7, and I remember that game, playing it, and certain events that happened in it more than I really remembered the overall story. So this game gives a refresher, Resident Evil 8, that is, gives a refresher at the beginning of it, going over the events of Resident Evil 7, which I really appreciated. I thought that was amazing. I wish every game did that. And I have to say this. The first area of this game, the first one past the village, is Castle Dimitrescu, and it's one of the best sections of any video game I've ever played. It rivals Resident Evil 1 for atmosphere and Resident Evil 2. It was incredible, and I loved it. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. It is that section of the game is straight up survival horror that you would expect from a Resident Evil game. The next section is almost like an escape room, which I thought was really, really cool. The area after that gets a little bit more, I would say, action-y, and then it just gets progressively more action-y as you work your way through the game. So while the beginning of the game and the village and the first couple areas are just unbelievably good, the game kind of trails off towards the latter half. And I have to say it, just straight up, the game starts off great. It gets progressively worse. If it had maintained the quality and the feel of the first half of the game, it would probably be the best Resident Evil game of all time, in my opinion. I thought it was incredible, but it did, like I said, it did kind of trail off. So Resident Evil Village, how good was it? Although it did trail off at the end, I would say this game's a 9 out of 10. It is amazing. If it had maintained its quality from the beginning all the way through, it would be a 10 out of 10, hands down. So the first half of this game is a 10 out of 10, and then it kind of drops to an 8-ish out of 10 at points. So 9 out of 10. This is a must play, I think, for any action fan or survival horror fan. Great. So this next game is tied directly to it. I don't know if you'd call it a game. I'm going to call it a game. I want to call it a game. I talked about how the DLC was included in this, but not really. They give you a download code. It's not on disc. Actually, I ended up being okay because I did not think it held up nearly as well to this game, and we'll flip it over. But it's the Shadow of Rose DLC right there. Let's talk about that. So in this DLC, you play as Rose, the girl you're trying to save from Resident Evil Village, but now she's a 16-year-old, and she, like I said, she's the daughter of Ethan Winters, the guy from Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. And I have to say this game, it does play in a third-person view, which is nice, but the story of this is the most far-fetched I've ever seen in a Resident Evil game. So that's saying a lot for a Resident Evil game. If you've ever played one, man, the stories can get bonkers and really jump the shark easily. But this one, I think, takes the cake. Basically, Rose has to go into the memory of a fungus that was near to the events of Resident Evil Village to walk through its memories to find a hidden crystal that's going to tell her the truth about her supernatural powers. What? That's crazy. That's so bonkers. I don't even know what to say about it. Why couldn't she have just gone back to the village and investigated? I don't get it. But whatever the case, it reuses the same areas from Resident Evil 8 and kind of remixes them in a way. And I have to say this, it does feel more survival horror than Resident Evil 8. Ammo is harder to come by. and all that. But the game is way, 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 way more linear. So it kind of like, I'm glad that there's less ammo, but I like exploring in Resident Evil games, and this kind of like took that away. However, I will say this is way scarier. This DLC is way scarier than the base game, and I was like tense and nervous like the whole time I played. But it's only like 3 hours long, so it's not going to weigh on you that much. Like I said, it is scarier. You have to like, it's almost like you're just trying to unlock doors. She has these powers where she can, I don't even know what they are. They're almost like these plants that grow out of the maps, and she can like charge her powers on them to unlock like doors. So you're basically just running around like unlocking doors while stuff is chasing you, and it's not nearly as fun as like the base Resident Evil Village by a long shot, and it felt like a totally different game at times. And I'll just come out and say it, that the ending of this is like just copied and pasted from Resident Evil Village. Like it's literally the exact same cutscene, which was really disappointing, and I didn't like that. I think Rose is an okay character, and I did enjoy playing as like the daughter of Ethan Winters and seeing what she's up to and stuff, and I hope they bring her back. I really do. But this just like didn't even feel like a Resident Evil game. It felt like a budget survival horror game that you'd, find in a bargain bin somewhere, or like a bad DLC, which is what it is. I mean, it's just a DLC pack, but they built it up so much. I just wish there had been more to it. Okay, my final thoughts on this whole package, like Resident Evil Village, and which I gave a 9 to, and the Shadow of Rose DLC. After I finished Resident Evil Village, I immediately wanted to play it again, and I did. Like, I went and unlocked a bunch of like guns. I blew through the game. So much fun. Had a great time with it. So much fun. After I finished Shadow of Rose, it like, I didn't want to play it again, and it like put me off of playing Resident Evil Village. So it, I think, brings down the total package, which is kind of sad. Like, I would not even recommend Shadow of Rose. If you're like a huge Resident Evil Village fan, it made the experience worse for me. I would say stay away from it. It was okay. It's a 7 out of 10. But like that brings down a 9. Like this experience was sullied by it. So cool package, but I'd just stick with Resident Evil Village. You get more fun there. A lot more fun. All right, guys, we're down to the last game. I'm sure my voice sounds terrible. My Sudafed's wearing off. I feel terrible. Let's knock this out. This game's on the Game Gear. It's a port of a Genesis game that I really, really like, and I think this is decent on the Game Gear. It has almost all the content of the Genesis version, but there's really no reason to play this day because you can play like Genesis games on the go. So, still, it's Road Rash. So I have so many flipping Game Gear games, guys. Like I said, I bought like almost an entire Game Gear set from a woman, and I'm like working my way through it. So when the game picks like, or when my system picks like random handheld games for me to play, it picks a lot of Switch and a lot of Game Gear, because that's what I have more of than anything else. I played this game many, many times on the Genesis. It's a lot of fun. This is my first time playing it on the Game Gear. As you can see, it's just a motorcycle racing game where you basically like punch your opponents off their bikes and try to avoid getting caught by the cops and getting arrested. It's okay. You win money for winning the races or placing in the races, and you use that to like buy better bikes that you move up like in leagues, and the races get harder and harder and harder. Although the way I always did as a kid, I would just stay in like the first or second league and just like keep racing over and over and over again to like grind out money till I got the very best motorcycle, and then just smash through the game. So, as we all know, man, sorry guys, my voice, I'm just like, it's killing me. Anyway, the Genesis is a 16-bit console, and Road Rash looks pretty decent on it. The Game Gear is an 8-bit console, so it has been like, compressed down to work on this system, but it still looks pretty decent. It looks pretty good. You can tell it's Road Rash. They've done like weird chiptune, 8-bit chiptune renditions of the different songs from the Genesis version of the game. They're kind of funny in a bad way, but we'll just say they're enthusiastic representations of their Genesis counterparts. They did the best they could. Like I said, it's a pretty decent port. It has, I think, basically all the content from the Genesis game. And it's better than it has any right to be. And you know, but they're like, you can play Genesis games on the go now on an emulator or like a Sega Nomad or whatever you want to do. Or, you know, so there's not much reason to play this because the Genesis version is better. And this does have a much lower frame rate. As you can see, it can be a little hard to control. And it's kind of choppy. I feel like they did that to help with the motion blur on the Game Gear. If you've never seen a Game Gear game, guys, like that screen is almost impossible to make out what's going on. It's just a blurry mess. Here on the emulator, I've cleaned that up, but it still doesn't look great. And it is a little hard to control. I'm playing worse on the emulator than I did like playing it in real life. And like I said, I don't have any way to record Game Gear other than playing on an emulator. So you're watching me give like a half-hearted effort here rather than trying to like do a good job. But so far, the handful of Game Gear games I've played in my life, I would say this is like the best game I've played on the Game Gear, yet I would still stick to the Genesis version. So Road Rash on the Game Gear, it's like a 7 out of 10. It's good. It's, like I said, it's the best Game Gear I've played thus far, but the Genesis version is just better, so play that one. There's really no reason to seek this one out unless you're just trying to like collect all the Road Rash stuff or just get a big Game Gear collection. Hey guys, sorry my camera died right before the outro. We're back. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. Trying to get up to those 1,000 subscribers. We got about 400 to go. And I appreciate all you guys do for me. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.